The SEGA Saturn. I haven't said those words for 2 years. Way back in 2019, I jumped on the SEGA Saturn, hard. I started with just a few games, growing my collection to 20 games, and eventually finishing with over 70 by 2023. That same year, I got the Japanese white SEGA Saturn and bought the Satiator, which allowed the console to load games from an SD card. It was amazing. I sold it all in late 2023 as I was struggling for money at the time, and I always regretted doing that. I loved the Saturn despite not growing up with it, and I couldn't wait to own another one. In July 2025, I finally reacquired the console again, but I couldn't simply afford to spend money reacquiring the games that I had since the prices have shot up for many of them. The solution? Get the Satiator again? At that price? Absolutely not. Instead, enter the Saroo cartridge, a device that plugs into the Saturn's cartridge port and plays games through the SD card slot. The Saroo can also act as a storage cartridge to save games. On top of that, the games that used the RAM Expansion Cartridges can utilize the Saroo, as the device has both the 1MB and 4MB carts built in. With the device costing me £60, the question is, should you get the Saroo for your SEGA Saturn needs? Let's connect the Saturn to my GBSC with the RGB SCART cables and let's find out. When you first get the Saroo cartridge, you'll need to update the software and put your games on the SD card. There's plenty of information on how to do this, and thankfully it's a straightforward process. Once you are ready, put the Saroo in the SEGA Saturn and this screen should appear. The main menu system is easy and minimal. The only aspects I worry about are the games, and then for those who play on a more serious note, the save files. You can see my layout is pretty plain with the box art displaying behind the text. To do this, press left on the D-pad in this menu. Scroll through the list until you find your desired game to play, and then hit A. If you wish to use the CD-ROM on the Saturn while the Saroo is plugged in, you can hit this menu here and the Saturn will default to using the disk drive rather than the SD card. The Saroo has many aspects going for it. Flash storage, especially micro SD cards, are cheap these days, making it easy to put your library of games onto it. The Saroo supports multi-disc games thankfully, and the software makes it easy to add them to the SD card. I know of some emulators that struggle to do this. For the games that need the 4MB or 1MB RAM expansion cartridge, this device automatically loads the correct one for the games that require it, or have it as an optional feature. Sadly, if you want the cutscenes in certain titles to look their best, the optional video CD card is still required. I hope to get one myself soon as I have a Japanese SEGA Saturn. Saving games to the Saroo is also easy. When games are saved to the cartridge, a file will be stored on the SD card for your convenience. I wouldn't worry about the file sizes, there's plenty enough for them as the save files are tiny. You could argue that the Saroo is a bit too simple, but this is the appeal. Why spend 1000 years setting it up? Jumping in with minimal effort on your part is why this cartridge has great potential for me. Lastly, homebrew games work too. Do you want to play English patched games? The Saroo allows you to do it. Want to play games from outside your region? The cartridge makes it possible with no modding required on your system. Want to try games or ports made by those in the retro gaming community? You absolutely can. For the £60 I paid for my Saroo, these features make it an absolute bargain compared to the Satiator I had in 2023. That device cost me £350 back then. All of this sounds compelling, but does the Saroo actually work? The short answer is yes. Many games do indeed work well, and even better, most of them work as if you used a CD-ROM. I tested nearly 50 games for this video, just to get a decent sample size for you folks. My Saroo has over 200 games on the SD card so far. As a big fan of this console, seeing the games work so well using the Saroo is an absolute game changer. SEGA Saturn prices of games have risen sharply in the last few years. Even the Japanese imports are much more expensive compared to when I was buying them in 2019 to 2023. The retro scene is no longer a cheap way to get into gaming for most people. Anyway, the games. Let me go through some that worked very well using the Saroo. Panzer Dragoon 1 and 2 worked perfectly with no issues to speak of. Great news for me especially, as I love the second game. Need for Speed worked flawlessly as well. I tried the Japanese version with Nissan cars and it was fun to play. The Western versions of the games worked just as well. Street Fighter Alpha 3 was amazing, and because it needed the 4MB RAM Expansion Cartridge, this showcases the ease of playing it on the Saroo. As you can see, it worked perfectly. Stellar Assault SS is the Saturn version of the game that first appeared on the Sega 32X. We have the English patched version here with English recorded voices, and it's a treat to play. It works very well indeed. Bulk Slash is the same story. This is the English patched version with English voices, and dang, this is awesome. I had a lot of fun trying it for the first time. Definitely recommended.
Straight ahead.
Astra Superstars takes advantage of the 1MB RAM expansion cartridge and also uses the Saturn's high-res 480i output. I've always enjoyed the music, fast-paced gameplay and character designs. It's certainly one for your Saturn collection. How about Macross? We have a pretty interesting shoot-'em-up title that was only released in Japan. I took a chance on it, and although difficult, it's one of those titles that deserves a lot more love. The soundtrack is equally fantastic as well. Digital Dance Mix Volume 1 is basically a tech demo for the system. Featuring the now retired Japanese singer Namie Amuro, we get to see her dancing and singing to two of her most popular hits digitally. Ironically, her music is no longer available to stream or listen to online, making this game one of the few ways to archive her biggest hits. Sometimes, preservation goes a long way in keeping aspects of entertainment intact, not just video games or movies. If you were wondering, yes, Panzer Dragoon Saga works perfectly. This is a very expensive game physically in 2025, and to see it working here is a great way to play it outside of using emulation. Here's more samples of games that worked very well when using the Saroo.
left, maybe. Medium left. Medium right, checkpoint. Easy left, maybe.
At this point, you're likely thinking, this device seems too good to be true. You'd be right. Although the Saroo is fantastic, it's a device that has faults. First, as you see, trying to find the Saroo isn't difficult. What is difficult is which one should you buy. This is tricky to answer. All Saroos are not made equally. All of them likely have different firmware or different versions of it, and build quality is all over the place. Some just look downright suspicious, to be honest. The model that I'm using is quite good, and I've had no significant problems after using it for the last 5 months now. I did update the firmware myself, which isn't hard to do. Definitely do this before firing up the Saroo. Also, be aware of the price. For me, anything past £80 I'd stay away from unless you're getting a big micro SD card included in the deal. All good Saroo should mostly function the same regardless of the price. Game compatibility is pretty good and I was impressed with how many games just worked. However, some games did not work at all or did with compromised performance. Fighting Vipers and Fighters Megamix slows down during gameplay. It's not all the time thankfully and the games do work, but you do notice it and when you do, it'll drive you crazy. The game, when played on a disc, would lock to 60 frames per second pretty much all the time. No version of Last Bronx worked for me. I tried the American and Japanese versions and all I get is a white screen. Zero Divide, the final conflict, doesn't work either, which is a shame. Thankfully, many games did work and this softened the blow. Depending on the Saroo you buy or the firmware you choose to use, your results may vary on the games which do work, but for me, this model is definitely a good one to buy. I cannot test every game possible. Over 1000 games were released for the Saturn after all. I do hope what I've shown you thus far has given you a good idea of its abilities should you choose to buy a Saroo for yourself. Oh! From my experience using the Saroo after 5 months, I can definitely recommend this SD card based cartridge. It's cheap, has great compatibility with many games, has the RAM expansion cards built into it, and it makes playing Saturn games on real hardware easy. It still allows you to use the CD-ROM if you wish to keep it intact. Be aware of cheap or poorly made Saroos and be sure to research which ones have the best compatibility for the best chances of games just working from the get-go when using this cartridge. Also, avoid paying too much for the device. Keep it below £80 if possible. I didn't think we'd live in a time where I could buy a stock SEGA Saturn, get a device like the Saroo, put my games onto it, and then have a good majority of those games work perfectly without going the extra mile. Sometimes modern technology really can be a blessing. What do you folks think of the Saroo for the SEGA Saturn? Would you be interested in getting one for yourself? Tell me in the comments, and I will see you soon.